Okay, right. Okay, right. So what are relationships and why do we need relationships? Okay, so like not in terms of Salesforce, just let's see this in terms of any kind of database. Okay, so how do we store information? Right, we have already discussed that. Okay, so how do we store information? We store information into tables, right? We store information into tables. In any database, we store information into tables. Say for example, let's take any e-commerce or maybe any retail business. Okay, so what happens in any e-commerce business, right? You'll have customers, right? You'll have customers, and what those customers will do, those customers will purchase products on regular basis, right? So they'll order something, right, from their website or whatever it could be on very regular basis, right? If you take Big Basket, so what will happen, right? I believe most of you people know Big Basket, right? Big Basket is something that delivers groceries on so both on demand basis and on regular basis, right? You can order the groceries and they'll deliver those groceries to your home, right? So what happens if you are a customer of a Big Basket, what you'll do, you'll daily order your groceries from their website. Okay, so that means what will happen, right? So they'll have the customers and they'll have the orders information as well, right? So say for example, you are the customer. Okay, one is the customer. Then what will happen, right? He will order something on day one. He'll order X, right? Some other day he'll order Y, some other day he'll order Z, right? So I mean, like, order means, some kind of groceries, right? Some other stuff, some whatever it could be, right? So these are the things. Okay, so now we all know, right, how we are going to capture all of this data. So we'll capture all of this data through tables, right? So that is what we generally do, right? So if we have to capture all of the data, how can we do that, right? So we can capture customers information, and then so we can capture whatever things that they've ordered, right, on day one, right? In second order, whatever things that they have ordered, right? Like this you can capture all of the data. But here you will have a problem. Okay, if you are capturing everything in a single table, okay, if you are capturing everything in a single table, what will happen, right? Say for example, first one is the customer name, right? Second one is the his phone number or whatever it could be, right? After that you're capturing order one first day, right? Second day you are capturing order two, third day you are capturing order three, right? So maybe on the same day, if you have ordered something, right, if you are capturing order four or something like that, right? So what can you do, right? If Ishwara is the customer, right, you can see what all his orders, right? In order one, what all products he has ordered. In order two, what all products he has ordered. In order three, what all other products he has ordered, and blah 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 blah. Okay, so the same way for second customer also you can do, third customer also you can do, right? So fourth customer also you can do. But here you have a problem. Okay, what is that problem? What is that problem? Okay, so first customer, right, may have ordered all the four. I mean, like, so first customer could have ordered four, right? 4 times he could have ordered. Okay, but the second customer may have ordered only once, right? Maybe the third customer, could have ordered only twice, say for example. Okay, so what will happen if you clearly observe this table? You'll find lot of what? Lot of unutilized spaces, right? So say for example, so one of your customer has ordered 100 times. So tomorrow a new customer came in, right? Since he is the new customer, how many orders he'll have, right? He'll have only one order, right? But one of your existing customer have already 100 orders, right? So no, that means what happen within this table? You'll have 100 columns, right? For each and every, what we are doing, we are creating one more column, right? So for the first customer you'll have 100 columns. For the last customer you'll have only one column filled. But what about all the 99 columns, right? So you'll not find any data in all of those columns, right? So if you are not filling data properly into your table, right, if you are just simply keeping all of your table empty, right, what will happen? It will utilize lot of space, and what will happen? What will happen, right? If you want to track, say for example, tomorrow you want to track customer queries or something like that, then what you'll do, right? You'll just simply add customer query or over here, right? So some other day, so some other customer will have some other customer query, right? So maybe you'll add, and one more thing like customer query or something like that, and in another column or something like that. You can do that. That's not a problem. But the problem is, like, if you are adding everything into a single table, Then if you want to, track all of that, and if you want to organize all of that, it will become very difficult. Okay. If you're capturing everything into a single table, it is not easy to track, so anything properly. Okay. So that is the reason why we came up with something called relationships. Okay. So what can we do is, right, instead of capturing everything into one table, what can we do is, so for the customers, you can keep one table, right? For all the orders, right, that customers are placing, you can keep another table, right? For all the customer complaints that this particular customer is, coming up with, for that you can have one more table, right? So that what will happen is that, so if you want to track only the customer complaints, right, for a given customer, right, what are all the customer complaints you have, if you want to track, what can you do? You can just simply go to this table, and from this table you can pull all his customer complaints. Okay. If you want to capture all the orders that a particular person has placed, right, that a particular customer has placed, you can go to this order table, right, and you can pull all the orders of a particular customer based on the name of the customer, right? So now it will become easy, and you will not have everything in a single table. Since everything was divided into multiple tables, what happens, right? You'll not have unutilized place, and you'll not have unnecessary denormalized data. Denormalized data means data with no proper organizing or whatever it would be. So computer science people will have a clear understanding of that, but that is one of the terminology, so that you don't need to much worry about it, right? So but let's simply try to understand this, right? If you keep everything into a single table, right, it will become very difficult to organize things, right? You'll have lot of columns unutilized, right? That means database is wasting lot of space, right? So but if you divide everything into different small tables, then it will become easy to analyze, it will become easy to organize, so you'll not have unnecessary data utilization and all of that, right? So now, since you have divided each and everything into multiple tables, right, there should be some kind of relation between these tables in order to understand, right, who has, ordered a particular thing, right? So okay, right, good. Okay, so now, right, so what I've just told you, right? So there is a table, right? Okay, there is a table, customers table. Okay. Okay, we have a customers table, and the same way we have what? Customers orders table, right? And the same way we have one more table which is called as customer complaints. Okay, so we have divided all of them into multiple tables. Okay, so in customers table, so what all information we have, right? Name of the customer, right? Phone number, okay, email address, something like that we have, right? So and what, his address or something like that. Okay, so these are the details that we have, which are related to customer. Okay, so customer name should be Ishwar, right? Sunil, okay, and Hitesh, okay, and maybe Lasya, okay, something like that, right? Their phone numbers could be 123 456, right? 789 0000, something like that. Okay, so some email, okay, blah blah blah, right? I'm just simply giving some dummy data, right? Address A1, A2, A3, and A4 or something like this we have, right? So when it comes to orders, right, so we have multiple orders, right? We are tracking orders as well, right? So say for example, Ishwar has 4 orders or 5 orders, right? So what are the orders, right? So we may have something like order number, right? So the product, that what product that he has ordered, right? So maybe something like this, right? The payment status, or some other stuff, right? So order number 1, 2, 3, and all of that, product X, Y, Z, or something like that, blah 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 blah. Okay, customer complaints, right? So what are the customer complaints, right? So customer complaint number you may have. Okay, so in general I'm saying, right, complaint number you'll have, right? So and date, right? Date on which he raised that particular complaint, status of the complaint, what is the status of the complaint, is it closed or still in open state, or still in progress or something like that. You want to track all of that, right? So something like this. Okay, so complaint number 1, 2, 3 or something like that, date like 2nd May or something like that, right? So some date, right? Status open, right? Closed, right? So and progress or something like that, right? We have multiple tables. In each and every table, what we are doing, right? We are tracking different type of data, right? In table 1, we are tracking customers. In table 2, we are tracking orders. In table 3, we are tracking customer complaints. But if you clearly observe, right, so we have customers as Ishwar, Sunil, Hitesh, and Lasya, but where, if you go to orders, we have order number 1, 2, 3, and all of that. We have all the products and everything. But so if you look at the order 1, right, whose order is this? Okay, if you look at the complaints, right, so second complaint or something like that, right, whose complaint is this? How do we get to know that? Right? How do you get to know that? So in order to know, right, whose order is this, whose complaint is this, right? So which customer's complaint is this, which customer's order is this? There should be some kind of relation between this customer's table and this orders table, and the same way this customer's table and this customer complaints table. And only we'll be able to identify, right? Otherwise, we cannot identify them, right? So now we got to know that, right? Instead of keeping everything into a single table, if you divide all of them into multiple tables, everything will be good. Okay, so that is the best practice to do it. But in order to identify, right, one table related data, right, with another table, how can we do that? Right, we can do that with the help of relationships, right? So how can you do that? We can do that with the help of relationships. So what kind of relationship? So there should be some kind of relationship between this customer and order, so that we can identify whose order is this. Okay, the same way, so if we have some identifier, right, on customer complaints, right, so which is related to customers, then we can identify, right, which customer complaint is that particular complaint, right? So for that, what we have to do, we can do one more thing, right? We can add one more column, right, okay, as customer, okay, on orders. The same way, we can add one more column on customer complaints also, okay, named customer, right? So now, if you are giving the name of the customer here, okay, if you are giving the name of the customer here, say for example, order 1 and order 2 are part of Ishwar, right? Order 3 is part of Lasya, say for example. Okay, the same way, complaint number 1 is part of, right, Sunil, right? Complaint number 2 is part of Hitesh, right? Say for example, the same way, complaint number 3 is part of Ishwar, say for example. Okay, now if you look at the order number 1, right, so whose order is this? Can you identify this or not? Ishwar's order, right? Whose order is the second order?
Ishwar's order.
Okay, whose order is the third order?
Last year's order.
Last year's order. The same way, if I go to customer complaints, right, so whose order is, whose complaint is the first customer complaint? Sunil, SUS Sunil. Okay, whose order is the second complaint? Hitesh, right? Whose, sorry, not order, right? Whose customer complaint is the third one? Ishwar, right? So this way, right, so what we have done, we have created a relationship between these customers and the orders, right? So how did we created that? We created that with one new column, right, named customer column. Okay, so using that customer column, what we have done, we have, just simply we can able to identify, like, so whose order is this, whose complaint is this, and all of that. Okay, so this is how you create relationships between multiple tables. Now, if I want to identify how many orders that Ishwar has placed, right? So I can just simply looking at this, I can tell, right? So how many orders Ishwar has placed? Ishwar has placed 2 orders. Why? Because we have 2 times, right, Ishwar's name in the orders table. That means Ishwar has 2 orders, right? The same way, if I have to identify, like, how many customer complaints Sunil has, right? So I can just simply looking at this table, I can say that, Sunil has 1 customer complaint. Okay, so this is what a relationship is all about. Okay, so this is what the relationships is all about. Okay, so using an identifier, okay, so using an identifier, a new identifier as a column on, so other table, what can we do is we can relate, one table to the other table. Okay, so in this case, what is the identifier? Customer name is the identifier. Okay, so even in customer complaints also, what is the identifier? Right, customer name is the, right, so identifier to identify whose customers, so complaints are there, right? So generally, so we should not just simply use the names and all of that. So why? Because, right, so what if you have, say, 2 Ishwars, right, as a customers? What if we have 2 people as customers, right, with the same name as Sunil? Okay, if you are using names, then what will happen, right? It will become difficult for you to identify, right, which Sunil's order is that, which Ishwar's order is that, right? Which Sunil's customer complaint is that, or maybe which, Ishwar's customer complaint is that, right? So for that reason, so we should not use the direct names or something like that. We should always use something that is unique. Okay, something that is unique for a particular customer or for a particular what record. Okay, or for a particular row. Okay, so for that reason, what can we do is, right? So for each and every customer, we can add a unique identifier, right? ID means generally an identifier. Okay, so we can add a unique ID for each and every record that we have, right? So, and using those IDs, right, what can we do, right? So in the other tables, right, instead of customer name, so what I can do is I can just simply keep customer ID here. Okay, so the same way, right, on customer complaints table also, instead of customer name, what can I do? I can have what? I can have, what can I have? I can have customer ID. Okay, so using this, what can I do, right? I can clearly identify, right, which customer is that and all of that. The same way for orders also, what should I have, right? I should have something like, order number or order ID, which could be unique for each and every record that I'm storing into that particular table, right? So this is one of the best practices that any database should follow, right? So whenever you are creating a table, right? So, and within the table, if you want to track records, right, or data, what we should do, right, along with all other fields, right, in the major data points or the major columns, what you should have a unique identifier column. Okay, a unique identifier column. Okay, so whether it be customers, whether it is orders, whether it is customer complaints or whatever it could be, for everything we should have some kind of unique identifier. Okay, so based on that, we should be able to identify what exactly that is. Okay, is that clear, guys? Right, that is what we have done, right? In customer complaints, we have some ID, right? We have used that ID. If you use that ID, we can identify, so what all orders that we have from that particular customer, right? What all orders or, so what are customer complaints we have from that particular customer. Okay, so that same way, right? Here, this order number can be unique thing, right? So 1, 2, 3 and all of that, right? Either you can have it as order number or maybe order ID, right? The same way here, you can have it as complaint number or complaint ID or something like that. Okay, so now we know what the relationships are all about. Okay, so now, right, so if you look at this particular thing, right, so what we have done, right? So in this particular table, right, in this particular table, customer table, right, we have customer name and customer email, and along with that, what we have done, we have uniquely created one more column, right? So we have created one more column called customer ID, using which we can uniquely identify which customer is that, right? So for Ishwar, we have 1001 as the ID, right? So for Saujanya, we have 1002 as the ID. For Umesh, we have 1003 as the ID. For Vinutna, we have 1004 as ID. Okay, but if you look at these orders, right, so in orders table also, we have unique identifier, which is called as order ID, right? Order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 103 and all of that. Okay, but along with that, right, if you have to identify which customer's order is that, what we are doing, right? We are adding one more field or one more column named customer ID. And so what we are doing, we are adding the customers related IDs into this particular column, right? Based on whenever we are adding a particular order into this table, right? What we are doing, along with all other details, order ID, order date and groceries, right, in order product and all of that, what we are doing, we are adding order customer ID as well, right? So how many orders were there for Ishwara? Someone tell me, what are those orders? First order, and then what are those orders?
Third and fourth.
Third and fourth, right? First order, third order, and the fourth order, right? We have 3 orders from Ishwara, right? The same way, if you have to identify how many orders from Saujanya?
1.
1 order, right? Which is second order, right? How many orders for Umesh?
0.
How many orders for Vinutna?
0.
Right? 0. Okay, right. So there is something called primary key and foreign key, right? So you don't need to worry about this primary key and foreign key, right? We don't use these things like primary key and foreign key in our Salesforce, but these are the general database terms, right? If you want to know, you can know that, right? So just simply type it in the Google, you'll get to know about it. Okay, but I don't want to confuse you with this primary key and foreign key. right? So, so I mean, like, let's keep this simple. Okay. So using this, we can identify these things. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, if I clearly observe, right? If I clearly observe, okay. So so one second, guys, right? If I clearly observe, right? So how many, right? So right. So we have two tables, right? Customer table, and what is the other one, right? We have the orders table. Okay. So if you clearly observe, for any given customer, right, you are having multiple orders, right? For any given customer, for any given single customer, you are having what? Multiple orders. Is that true or false? Okay. But but if you look at the order, right, for any given order, you'll always have one customer. Okay. So if you take first order, right, how many customers you have for the first order, order 1 to 3? How many customers you have? Only one customer, right? But whereas for customer one, if you take customer one, how many orders you have? Right, we have 3 orders, right? 1, 2, and 3. So that means which one is the one side and which one is on the many side? Which one is on the one side and which one is on the many side? Okay. So generally in one to many relationship, what you'll have is, right, if you have two tables, right, table 1 and table 2, right? So whichever table, right, is having a reference of table, the other table, right? So whether table 1 or table 2, whatever it could be, if any of the table is having multiple references of the other table, then what we'll call it is, right, so we call the table 1 as one side of that one to many relationship, right? Whatever things that is, so on whichever table you have multiple references of the other records, right? Other tables records, we'll call them as, we'll call that table as is on the many side of the table. Okay. If you clearly observe, right, for the customers and orders, right, for each and every customer, you'll have multiple orders, right? But whereas, for each and every order, you can have only one single customer, right? So, so that is how it is, right? So if you want to track orders, right? So if you take any given order in that particular table, you'll have only one customer, right? So only one customer can have an order associated to it, right? But whereas for our customers, right, a customer can have multiple orders, right? That is what this one to many relationship is all about, right? So see, one to many relationship, right? You can denote that with the help of this particular symbol. Okay. One and many. Okay. So this particular, whichever side, whichever table that is on the branches side, that table you can consider it as like, many, on the many side, whichever table that is on the single side of this particular sign, right? You can consider that as on the one side of the particular relationship, one and many, right? You can call it in a different terminology as well, right? Parent and child also you can call it. Okay. What you can call it? You can call it as parent and child, right? In these relationships, right, what is the parent? Which can be considered as a parent, right? Customer table can be considered as a parent, right? Whereas what?
Child.
Okay. So this orders can be considered as on the child side of it. Okay. Child table. Okay. So why parent and child we are calling it, like, if you take a general terminology, right? And if you take a general terminology, right? So like in real world, right? So if you take parents and children, right? Parents and children, right? So you can have multiple children, right? For a particular parents, you can have multiple children, whereas a children cannot have multiple parents, right? Is it true or false? Is that true or false, guys? Right?
Yes.
Children cannot have different parents, right? Your children can have only one set of parents, whereas parents can have multiple children. Okay. So that is the reason why, right, this one to many relationship is more oftenly called as parent child relationship as well. Okay. So try to keep this in mind whenever you are creating relationships, right? Most of the times, right, in our Salesforce also, we'll use this particular terminology only, right? We'll not use one to many and all other type of relationships, one to one or one to many and all other stuff, right? So we're not discussing many type of relationships here, right? We are discussing only about one to many relationships here, right? Most of the times this is what you'll have. Okay. So that means, right, so going forward, if I say something as a parent, that means that is on one side of the relationship, right? So if I am saying, something as a child, right? So you should consider that on the many side of the relationship. Now let me go to the next thing. Okay. So now, okay, that's fine. We have discussed about the relationships in general, but how about the relationships in Salesforce? Okay. How about the relationships in Salesforce? If you have to create relationship, right? If you have to create relationship between two objects, right? How can you create a relationship between two objects, right? So in Salesforce terminology, right? So what do we have, right? Tables are nothing but what? Objects, right? Is that right or wrong? Tables are nothing but objects, right? So now what you have to do, right? So if you have to create relationships between, I'm like, if you need a relationship, right? So what we have to do, right? We have to create relationship between objects, right? Object A, object B, or whatever it is, right? If you have multiple objects, you have to create relationship between those objects. Now let's see how we can create that right now, how it works and all of that. Okay. So relationships in Salesforce are pretty similar to relationships in relational database. However, there are different ways of creating relationships. Okay. In Salesforce, you can create relationships in two different ways, right? We'll see all of that, right? So what are those two relationships and how can you create those two relationships, right? You can create the relationships with the help of two types of fields. Okay. Two types of fields between, any of the objects. You can create relationship between two objects with the help of two types of fields. One is lookup relationship field and the other one is master detail relationship field. Okay. Either you will use this one or you'll use this one. Sometimes, in some cases, you may have to use both of them as well, right? So we'll see all of that in more detail, right, in our upcoming topics. Okay. So that is what this relationship is all about. Okay. So if I ask you that how you can create relationships between the objects in Salesforce, what you have to tell, right? You can create those relationships with the help of what? Lookup relationship and master detail relationship fields. Okay. You can create those relationships with the help of lookup relationship field and the master detail relationship field. Now let's see what are these lookup relationship fields and the master detail relationship fields. But before going, into that and, seeing that in more detail. So now let's see one example. Okay. Now let's see one example for this. Okay. Right. So if I look at this particular thing, right? So if I look at this particular thing, so in our Salesforce, right? So we do have some standard objects named account and contact. Okay. So we do have some standard objects named account and contact, right? So we have created multiple custom objects already in our project, recruitment project, right? We have created objects like positions, right? We have created some object, object like positions, candidates, right? So and job applications, right? And blah 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 and all of that, right? Like this, 6 or 7 objects we have created. Okay. So these are the custom objects, right? It's the same way, like, so how we have custom objects, Salesforce has already given some pre-built functionality. We know that, right? So in that pre-built functionality, so we have some tables or we have some objects named account and contact. Okay. So now what is an account object, right? And what is the purpose of account object and what is the purpose of contact object? Let me tell you. Okay. So generally, right, so what will happen, right? So we know Salesforce is used by businesses. Okay. We know Salesforce is used by businesses. If you consider any business, right? So say, for example, I have a business. Okay. I have a business. Okay. I have a business. What I sell is, right? I sell software products, say, for example. Okay. So I have a business. Okay. What is this business? This business is software business. Okay. Say, for example, I have this, right? So so my customers are like, local businesses, say, for example. Okay. My customers are the businesses are my customers, say, for example. Okay. So some saloon shop is a business, right? Some retail shop is one of my customers, say, for example. Okay. So the same way, some kind of grocery stores also can be my customer, right? I am selling a software to all of this people, saloons, retail stores, grocery stores, and all other stuff. Okay. Say, for example, this is what it is. Okay. So now if I have to track all of my customers, right, in Salesforce, what can I do is I can use accounts object. Okay. What can I use? I can use accounts table, right? Accounts table to track all of my customers, right? Who are all my customers? Saloon shop, is one of my customer, right? Saloon, right? Ishwar Saloon is one of my customer. Okay. Sunil Retail is one of my customer. Okay, right. Lasya Grocery is one of my customer. So these are the shops names, right? So the Sunil Retail is one of the shop, right? Lasya Grocery is one of the shops, say for example, right? Ishwar Saloon is one of the saloon shop, right? All of these are my customers, right? How can I store all of my customers information? I can store all of my customers information using accounts. Okay, the same way, right? The same way we do have something called contacts also in Salesforce. Okay, so what is the purpose of contacts, right? The purpose of contacts is like, so we'll store, right, the individual people from each and every business, right, that I have here. Okay, so in the contacts object, right, and I'll store all of those details in the contacts object. Say for example, from Ishwar Saloon, right? So I have I'm in touch with two people. Okay, one is Hitesh, okay, and the other one is Ramesh, say for example. Okay, so these are the two people with which I am in touch with, right, from Ishwar Saloon. Okay, so so these people are right, so these are the people who are using the software on day-to-day basis, right? I've already sold my software to Ishwar Saloon, but who are using that software, right, on day-to-day basis? Hitesh and Ramesh are using that particular software, right? The same way I've sold my right, so my software to Lasya Grocery also, right? So I'm capturing all of the customers, right, information, like the payments and all other stuff through the accounts, right? So whereas, right, so with whom I'm in touch with, right, from Lasya's Grocery is, right, so I'm in touch with Chaitanya, okay, and I'm in touch with Krishna, say for example. Okay, so I'm in touch with these people. Okay, so now how can I capture these people, right, in my database, right? So right, so if I take Ishwar, right, so who are all part of Ishwar Saloon, right? If I take Lasya, right, who are all part of, so who are all people, who are part of Lasya's Grocery. If I have to check that, how can I check that? I can go to contacts object, and from the contacts object, I can just simply go to Hitesh record, so that I will get all the Hitesh details, right? What is his phone number, what is his, email address and all of that, right? If I go to Ramesh record, right, I'll get to know, who is Ramesh, what is his phone number, what is his email address and all of that. The same goes to Chaitanya, and the same goes to Krishna as well. Okay, but this Krishna and Chaitanya are part of Lasya Grocery, right? Whereas so this Hitesh and Ramesh are part of Ishwar Saloon. Okay, so what is the purpose of contacts, right? The purpose of contacts objects in Salesforce is to store contacts from the individual businesses with which, with whom I am in touch with, right? So from my software business with whom I'm in touch with, I am capturing all of the data, so using these two different tables. Okay, now tell me, right, so which is on the one side, which is on the parent side, and which is on the child side in both of these, in this particular relationship, right? In between these two objects. So contacts are on the many side, right? Why? Because for Lasya Grocery, I have two contacts, right? The same way for Ishwar Saloon also, I have two contacts, right? If there is someone, right, named Stephen, right, then what you'll have, right, I'll have three contacts from Ishwar Saloon, right? So that way Ishwar Saloon is on one side, and all the people, right, Hitesh, Ramesh are part of Ishwar Saloon. Okay, right? So that means, they are on the many side. Is that, let me go back to this presentation, right? So now if you look at this, right, so on accounts, right, right, so how I can uniquely identify the accounts is through, right, account ID. Okay, through what? Account ID. I've already told you, right, so for every object that we create in Salesforce, right, that we create in Salesforce, we'll have some fields that will come by default, right? So what are those fields? Can some modified by who modified, right? Last modified, yeah. And who created that? Okay, who is owner of that particular record? What is the name of that particular record, and all of this, right? These are the standard fields that gets created, right? The same way I have told you, right, there will be some system fields as well. What are those system fields? Created date, okay, last modified date, right? So these things, right, created date, okay, last modified date, right? The same way for each and every record, right, there is another system field called ID as well. Okay, ID is also a system field, right? You don't see that generally within the field section, right? So within your org, but these fields are there in the back end. Okay, so So we have already discussed this. If you clearly remember, right? If you remember this, right? What we have done, right? So we went to one of the records. If we went to one of the records last time, right? So let me open my org. Okay. Okay, trailhead. Let me log in into my org. Okay, just give me a second. Let me launch my Waka org, the one that I've created. Okay, if I open any position, right, what happened, right, in the URL, right, there is some ID that gets that is there here. Okay, this is something we have already seen earlier, right? So uniquely for each and every record that we have in our Salesforce org, right? So what Salesforce does, right, it will add some record ID uniquely. I've already told you this. So the same way for each and every record, right, in each and every table, right, in each and every table that we have, right, in each and every table that we have, right, in each and every table or each and every object, right, that we have in our Salesforce, right? So there will be a particular field, right, called ID. Okay, if it is account, right, we call that as account ID. But ID, there will be a field, that gets created, and using that particular ID, you can uniquely identify. You can uniquely identify which record is that. Okay, which record is that, right? If I have a ID, right, from account, right? So using that account ID, what can I do is, right, I can just simply go and see what is that particular record and all the details of a particular record. If I have this particular ID, using this ID, what can I do is, right? So I can identify which position is that, right? The same way. So on account object also, if you want to identify which particular account is that, right? You can identify with the help of what? With the help of an account ID. Okay, right. That's fine. Okay, so now what do we have, right? So we have two tables, right? I've already told you we have two tables, right? We have two tables. Okay, and we have two objects, right? So one is account object, right? This is account object, right? And the other one is contact object. Okay, if you clearly observe these objects, right, Cloud9 is an account, right? Infosys is an account, Waka is an account, Zomato is an account. For each and every account, we have some IDs associated with them, right? So what I've told you, right, for each and every account, right, you can have multiple contacts. Contacts is an object which will store contacts from a particular account, right? So if I want to know, so what all contacts which are part of Cloud9 account can tell me just by looking at this particular table, right? Ishwar and Umesh, right? So this one and this one, right? So this is the account ID. If you clearly observe this is the account ID and this is the account ID. Ishwar and Umesh are part of Cloud9 account, right? The same way, Infosys, who are all part of Infosys? Who are all part of Infosys? Who are all part of Infosys?
Saujanya,
Vinod.
Saujanya and Vinodna are part of Infosys, right? Good. So the same way, if you look at for Waka, if you look for Waka, right, there are no contacts for Waka. So the same way for Zomato also, there are no contacts here. Okay. So now how we have, how we are able to identify, so which contact, is a part of this particular account and all of that. We are able to identify with the help of this particular field. Okay. This particular field or this particular column. Okay. What is that column, right? That column name is account, right? So we have a column called account, right? Using this particular column, right? We are able to identify, right? Or using column or using this particular field, what we are able to do, we are able to identify which account, right? This particular is part of, right? Which account this particular contact is part of, right? Which account this particular contact is part of, right? This particular field, we call it as a what? Lookup field. Okay, this particular field we call it as a lookup field. Using this lookup field, right? Using this lookup field, what we are doing, we are creating a relationship between this account and the contact. Account and the contact. What we have done, using this particular lookup field, we were able to create a relationship between this object account and this object contact. Okay, so whereas this contact is on many side, and this account is on which side? One side, right? This one is on many side and this one is on one side. Now, right, if you clearly observe, how did we created the relationship, right? So we've created the relationship with the help of lookup field, right? That is something we have already we have just now discussed, right? So where did you created this lookup field? We have created this lookup field on which object? Which object? Child
Lookup.
object. We have created this field on which object? Contact object, right? So that means we have created this lookup field on child object. Okay, whenever you want to create a relationship between two objects, right? So say for example, you have two objects like object A and object B. If you want to create a relationship between these two objects, right? First, what you'll do is you will check, right? Which one should be the child, right? Which one should be on the many side, right? If you feel like, the B is something that should be on the many side, then what you'll do is you'll go and create that lookup field on B object, okay, on the child object, right? So on the child object, what you'll do, you'll create a new field, right? So, and you will create a relationship between those two objects using that particular field, and that particular field is lookup field, right? While creating a lookup field, it will ask you, right? Salesforce will ask you, boss, you're creating a lookup field, right? Which object, right? Or based on which object you want to create this lookup field, right? If I'm creating a lookup field on object, right, to relate this object to A, B object to A, while creating that lookup field, it will ask me, right, to which object you want to relate this particular object. Then I'll select, right, I want to relate this object to A object, right? So then what will happen, right? That field will get created by default with the name of account. So with the name of object A, right? With the name of object A. The same thing happened here, right? So account is a lookup field, right? On what? Contact object, right? Account is a lookup field on the contact object. But why this particular field name has become as account? Why? Because, right, I am associating this particular object with the account object, right? So for that reason, the name of the field by default will become as what? The name of the parent object. Okay, but what data that gets stored into this particular field in the backend? Which data that gets stored into this particular field in the backend? ID. Okay, ID of the account. Okay,
Yes,
now
yes,
let's
sir.
look at this particular example in real time, okay, in one of our org, so that you'll be able to understand this in much more clear way. Okay, so now let me go to any of the accounts. Right now, let me switch to one of the applications that I have, right? Service or whatever it could be, right? So let me go to sales application. Okay, in sales application, what do I have? I have accounts and I have contacts as well. Okay, now let me go to all accounts. If I go to all accounts, right, I can see all the accounts that are there in my org, right? If I open any of the accounts, Burlington Textiles Corp, right? So what can I do, right? If I go to details section, I can see all the basic details of this particular account, not basic, right? All the full details of this account, right? What type of this, what type is this, right? What is the phone number, right? All of these are fields on the account object. But if I go to related section, what I can do is, right, I can see all the child records of this particular account. Okay, so if you go to any record in the Salesforce, you'll have something called related here. If you go to this related thing, you will see all its associated child related objects, right? Contacts is one of the child for account, right? So there is a relationship between contact and account, right? The same way, opportunities are also one of the childs of account, right? There is a relationship between opportunity and account also, right? So so that means, you can have more than one opportunities, right? For account. That means you can have more than one contact for account, one as a given account, right? See, if you clearly observe, right, there are two cases, right, for this particular account. That means cases is on the many side of it, right? So if you go to the parent record, right, so if you go to the parent record and if you open the related list, you can see all it's associated child records, right? Whatever whatever number of objects that are there, like the childs, right? Each and every object is divided with a different section, right? So in that particular section, if you want to see all the child records of it, if you just simply click on view all, right, it will display all the child records, right, of that particular parent record, right, which is Burlington Textiles, right? If I want to know what all the cases of the Burlington Textiles, right, if I just simply go to the related section of the Burlington Textiles account, and if I come to the cases, right, if I click on view all, I can see all the cases associated with it. Okay, the same way, right? So here we are discussing about contact and account, right? So now if you clearly observe, right, contact is on the related side of this particular account, right? If I go to the contact object, right? So let me just simply go back to this Burlington Textiles once again, right? Who is the contact? Jack Rogers is the contact, right? Let me go to the contacts object. Let me click on all contacts. Let me open Jack Rogers. Where is the Jack Rogers? Here is the Jack Rogers. Okay. If I open this Jack Rogers, right? If I go to the detail section, okay. So where do we have this Jack Rogers? I've already told you, right? So where do we have it? So on this Jack Rogers, on this contact, right? Right, on contact is a child object, right? That means on the contact we'll have one field, right? We'll have one field with the name of account. Why? Because account is the parent of it, right? So that means we'll have one account, right? So we'll have a field named account, right? In which what do we store, right? We store the account IDs. Okay, in the backend we store account IDs, but in the UI you'll just simply see the name of it, name of that particular parent record, right? This account name is there, right? If you clearly observe, there is a field named account name. This is the lookup relationship, right? What is this? This is the lookup relationship field, right? Like the contact owner, name of the contact, right? The mobile number of the contact, right? Title of the contact, birth date, reports, right? Lead source and all other stuff. These are all the fields. The same way we have a field called account name also, right? What is this field, right? This field is a lookup relationship field, okay. Using this field, what we have done, we have created a relationship between accounts and contacts, whereas accounts is on the parent side, right, or one side, whereas contacts is on the child side or many side. Okay, these fields we haven't created manually, so since all of these fields were by default came into our system, so all of these are standard fields only. Okay, standard fields on what? Standard fields on our standard contact object. Okay, so if you want to create some custom fields, you can create the custom fields as well based on your requirement. Okay, so that is what it is. So now there are few things that you have to consider for a lookup relationship. Okay, there are few things that you have to consider for a lookup relationship. Okay, let me tell you what are those considerations. Okay, so sometimes, okay, so you'll have contacts without businesses also. Okay, sometimes you'll have contacts without businesses also, without accounts also. Why? Because, right, so you'll meet some guy, right, in a networking event or maybe somewhere. Okay, so what will happen, right? So that guy also wants a software, but he don't have any company or something like that. So in that case, will you sell your software to that particular guy or not? Is that true or false? Right? You don't limit yourself, right? So by selling your software only to the businesses, right? So there are chances that so some individuals also may be needing your software. So in that case, what you have to do, right? You will not have the customer account, right? You'll have only the contact. Okay, the contact or the person with whom you want to be in touch with. Okay, that means, right, so if I have to create a contact, right, every time I create a contact, if I have to fill this account name, so do you think I'll be able to create that particular contact? The guy who is not part of any company, but he wants my software, so do you think will I be able to create that particular contact if I'm not able to create a contact without storing an account name? Is that right? Or wrong? Should it happen that way?
No.
No, right? So we should be able to create a contact, right? So whenever, right, so whenever you have right, in your relationship between two objects, right, between object A and between object C, so object B, right? So if you feel like, so even though, right, if there is no record, right, even though there is no parent associated to that particular record, so if I want that record to be created, right, so in that case, right, so the relationship field that I create, right, on my B object, so will be a lookup relationship. Okay, will be lookup relationship, right? What is it? Will be a lookup relationship. There is one more relationship, okay, which is called as master detail relationship. I'll tell you what that master detail relationship is, right? So you can create relationships using two different fields. I've told you. One is lookup relationship field. One is lookup relationship field. What is the other one?
Master detail relationship.
What is other one? Master detail also I've told you, right? Master detail also I've told you, right? If you are using lookup relationship, right, the both parent and child object are loosely coupled. Loosely coupled means what? Loosely coupled means what? Even without a parent, right? Even without a parent, I should be able to create the child record, right? So if you look at the relationship between the account object and the contact object, it is a lookup relationship. Why? Because, right, without even creating an account, right, without even having an account, I can create a contact, right? So whenever I want to have that kind of feasibility, I'll go with lookup relationship. Whenever so I have a requirement wherein so without having a parent, right, I don't want any record to be created in the child object. If that is my requirement, then what I'll do is I'll go with master detail relationship. Okay, so both of them will create a relationship between the two objects. But whereas in a lookup relationship, right, even without filling the information of the parent record, right, so the parent object, I can create a child record. Whereas in master detail, without entering the parent record details, right, I cannot create a child record, right? That is the difference between lookup and the master detail, right? Major difference. Okay, major difference. Whereas in in lookup relationships, objects are loosely coupled, whereas in master detail relationship, right, so the objects are tightly coupled. Okay, so tightly what? Coupled. Okay, so this is something we'll see with an example. Okay, so now if I just did this, right, so let me create a contact. But if you see all the contacts here, I have an account name associated with it. Andy Young has an account name. Arthur Song has an account name. Ashley James has an account name, right? Avi Green has an account name. For all of these things, there is an account. But what if, so I want to create something without an account. Let's see whether I can create it or not. Okay, so if I click on new and if I give some details like Ishwara Naidu. Okay, see, account name is not mandatory. If you clearly observe this, account name is not mandatory. Okay, so I can just simply give some mobile number, phone number, title, and all of that, right? So since all of those fields are not mandatory, I'm not just simply filling it, right? Let me create this particular record and let's see what happens. See what happened? Contact got created even without filling the account name. Okay, so that means what is the relationship between contact and account? What is the relationship between contact and account? What type of relationship is it? What type of relationship
Lookup.
is?
Lookup.
Lookup relationship. Okay, lookup relationship. Okay, lookup relationship. Okay, right. So this is fine. Okay, now let's look at master detail relationship with one of the examples. Okay, so now say for example, I've just told you, right? So master detail relationship can be used to create one-to-many and one-to-many. I'll tell you, okay, one-to-many relationship between two objects when those objects are tightly coupled with each other. Okay, let's look at a simple example. Okay, so you have students. Say for example, you are running a school and you have what? You have students. Okay, you have students, and for each and every student, you want to capture their payments. Okay, you want to capture their payments. Now you have two objects, right? One is student object and the other one is payment object. Okay, so right, so now just simply by looking at this, so which one is the parent and which one should be the child? Which object should be the parent and which object should be the payment? Which object should be the child between student and the payment? Which object should be the parent and which object should be the child? Can someone tell me? one student can have multiple payments, right? But considering a particular payment, right, that payment should be related to only one student, right? A payment cannot be of multiple students, right? A payment can always be of one student, right? That means payment is on many side and the student is on the one side. Okay, one student can have multiple payments, right? One student can have multiple payments. That means payment is on many side and the student is on one side. Okay, now if you clearly observe, right, in this example, do you think without a student can you create a payment? Is that right? Without having a student, should we be, I mean, like, so should we be able to create a payment?
No.
No, right? So whenever you are tracking payments, definitely you should have some student associated with it. So money doesn't just simply come like that, right? So double everki urki rao. So that means that money or that payment should be associated to some individual, right? Some student. Okay, so that means in that case, what kind of relationship we should create between the student and the payment object, right? If you look at this, right, this is the student object, right? Student, and this is the payment object, right? And student, we have student name and email, and in the payment object we have the amount that he has paid and which student is that and all of that. But if you clearly observe, without a student, right, there should never be a payment in existence, right? Without a student, there should never be a payment in existence, right? In those cases, what you'll do is you'll create a master detail relationship, right? On the child object, on the payments object, right? What do you do, right? If you have to create a relationship between payment object and the student object, what you'll do, right? You will create a master detail relationship on the payment object, master detail relationship field on the which object? Child object, right? So whenever, again, I'm repeating this, whenever you are creating a relationship between two objects, the parent and child, right? If you have to relate them, right, where you will create the relationship field, you'll create the relationship field on the child object. Okay, this is something you have to keep in mind, right? Here in our case, in this example of student and payment, right, which one is the child object?
Payment.
Payment is the child object. So that means, where do we create that master detail relationship, right? So the student is the master detail relationship field name, right? Where do you create this, right? You create this MD relationship field on the payment object. Okay, so now, let's go back to our recruitment application itself. Okay, now let's go back to our recruitment application itself. And we have positions, we have candidates, we have job applications, we have employment websites, and we have reviews. Okay, so what all relationships we should be creating between these objects? Okay, now can a position, right? Please tell me, right? What should be the relationship between positions and the candidates? Right. So let me reiterate later what all these objects are. Positions object is to store job openings. Okay. Candidates object is to store whose information, right? Applicants information, right? Whoever is applying for a job, right? Applicants or candidates, right? So those people's information will store it in the candidates what? Object, right? The same way, job applications, right? What is the purpose of this job applications? Right? The purpose of this job applications is, right? So what all, right? So given a candidate, right? For what all job openings, he has applied for, right? So we'll track all of that in the job applications. Then let's come to employment websites. What is the purpose of employment websites? Right? So here we'll store all the applications, job applications, right? What is the purpose of employment websites, guys? What is the purpose of employment website? What is the purpose of employment websites object? To store information related to websites on which we are posting our jobs. Okay, what is the purpose of reviews? Right, for any given application, what all are the feedbacks, interview feedbacks, right? So a candidate has applied for a job, right, through an application, some application, and if you have to, track that application, like, through multiple round of interviews and all of that, so we would be tracking through reviews object. Okay, right. So let me tell you, right, so for every position that we have, right, for every position that we have, so what do we want to do is, right, we want to associate, right? Okay, so I mean, there is one more requirement that came in. Say, for example, there is one more requirement that came in. So that requirement is right. So whenever we are creating a position, what we want to do is we want to associate those positions to one of the hiring managers. Okay, hiring managers from our recruitment team. Say, for example, this is a requirement that we have. Okay, so hiring managers means who are those? I mean, like, who they could be, right? They could be our internal users. Internal users means business users only, right? From the recruitment team. So now what I want to do is, right, for every position that I create in my org, what I want to do is, right, I want to associate it with some hiring manager. Okay, so positions that are coming from IT department, right? So Ishwar should be the hiring manager, right? Positions that are coming from what some facilities department, so should be I mean, for these positions, right, so Jagadish should be the hiring manager or something like that. So I want to have it like this. Okay, now tell me, right, if you look at the position object, right, if you look at the position object and hiring manager, what is that object? Hiring manager is the name that we want to call with, right? But what object is that? I've just told you, right? Users object, right? Users object. User object is the place where you'll track all our internal users, right? Jagadish or Ishwar and all of those people. Where do we store them? Right? We store them in our users object, right? So that means these users are the hiring managers, right? Now we have two objects here, position object and the user object. Okay, position object and the user object. Okay, what should be the relationship between, right? So I mean, so I know, right, for each and every position, there should be one hiring manager associated with it, right? Now tell me which object, right, which object should be on the parent side, right, and which object should be on the child side between this position and the user, or maybe between this position and the hiring manager, whatever, I'm like, whichever way you want to call it, you can call it like that. Okay, between this position and the hiring manager, right? Hiring manager. Okay, hiring manager or user, whatever it could be, right? One should be on the many side and which one should be on the one side. So what, right, for any given position, how many hiring managers you'll have, right? Let's just look at that, right? Salesforce administrator, this is from IT department, right? So what did I told you guys? For any IT positions that I'm creating, so who should be the hiring manager, right? Ishwar should be the hiring manager. Okay, so Salesforce administrator is one IT position, right? Salesforce developer is one IT position, right? Java developer is, another position, right? Maybe, so I'll be having another position like, IT administrator could be another position, right? So for all of these positions, right, who is the hiring manager? Who is the hiring manager? Who is the hiring manager? Ishwar is the hiring manager. Ishwar is on the one side and all these positions are on the main side, right? That means hiring manager is on the one side and these are on the many side. Okay, so then what is the parent and what is the child? Which object is a parent and which object is a child?
Ishwar is a parent.
Hiring
Position
manager is the parent object, right? Hiring manager, or in our terms, user object, right? User object is on the parent side and the position object is on the child side. Okay, so now, right, now I want to create a relationship between this position object, right? This position object and the user object. Now tell me, where should I create the relationship field? Where should I create the relationship field? Okay, right. So now tell me, right, so if I have to create that particular field, right, so how can I do that? Like, I have to go to that object manager, right? I have to go to the object manager. Okay, from object manager, where do we create fields? From the object manager, right? What is that particular field? What is that particular field? Sorry, what is that particular object? Position object, right? So now let me go to the position object. Okay, so what should I do now? I should go to the fields and relationships. On this fields and relationships, click on new and then select the lookup relationship. Okay. So I should be able to create these, positions even without the hiring manager also. Sometimes, I may or may not know the hiring manager. Okay. So if I don't know it, if I was not supposed to create it, then I'll never have the positions, right? So for that reason, what I want to do is, right, my business told me that, so, okay, boss, even though you don't know who is the hiring manager, just, so you should be able to create those positions, but later if we know the hiring manager, we can add it. Okay, that is what the requirement, that is how they said it, right? In that case, should I select lookup relationship or master detailed relationship? Okay. So I should be able to select the lookup relationship. Why? Because even though there is no hiring manager, I should be able to create what? The
Lookup.
yeah. So the position record, right? For that reason, so I should be selecting what? Lookup relationship. Now I've selected the lookup relationship. Now it will ask me in the second step, right? To which object you want to make the parent for this particular object. That is what it will ask us, right? Which object we want to make it, I'm like, make the parent as, make the parent, right? For this particular object through this field, which object we want to do it, right? We want to do it for user object, right? So now you have to select the user object, right? Now let's click on next, right? So now you can give some label, whichever label you want to give, you can give the label for it. Okay. What is the label that I want to give for it? What is the label? Position. Sorry, hiring manager is the label. Okay. Hiring manager is the label. Okay. Even though the relationship between both of the objects is, via user object, right? But the label you can give anything you want to have, right? So for that reason, I'm giving hiring manager as the label and the field name. Okay. And what is the child relationship name, right? You can create a relationship name. Okay. So, so between both of those objects, whatever lookup relationship you are creating, right? So for that lookup relationship, you can give some name also. Okay. That is what this particular name is. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm just simply giving that relationship name as positions. Okay. That's it. Okay. So why I'm giving this as positions, right? Just by this particular name, what will happen is that, right? If I go to any of the, accounts, right? Let me go to the previous one, right? Between the accounts and this one, what is that? Contacts, right? If I go to accounts, right? If I open any of the accounts, right? If I go to related, I'm like, I'll be able to see different sections, right? Like contacts, opportunities, and all of that, right? So based on the relationship name only, right? So this particular thing will appear here, right? If I'm giving relationship name as something else, right? So I'll get that particular something, some other name here. Okay. So if I go to user object, right? So if I want to see the hiring managers and all of that, sorry, all the positions that particular user is part of, right? So I can give that particular child name here, right? So if I give the name as positions, then what will happen? That particular positions name will appear on the user object in the related list, right? Whatever relationship name that I give here, that relationship name, using that relationship name, I can reference its associated child records. Okay. That is what this name is. Okay. So in this case, I'm just simply giving it as positions, right? So that whenever I go to user object, just looking at this positions, I can know that, okay, so these are the part of positions related thing. Okay. So most of the times we will give the child object name itself as the child relationship name. Okay. So now just simply click on next. Okay, now what I'm doing, right? So I want this field to be visible for everyone. So I just, for that reason, I just simply kept it like that. So I want this field to be available on the position layout as well. Okay, so now what I've done, I've added it to the position layout. Okay, so now I have this field. Okay, now if I go to my recruitment application and the position object, right? If I open Salesforce Administrator, what I want to do, I want to give the hiring manager as what, right? So this is how lookup relationships and the master detail relationship will look like, right? You'll have some small, search icon like this. Why? Because I can search for hiring managers here, right? From which object I'll get these records? From user objects, right? If I search for E or something like that, it will show all the people, right? So with whose name starts with E or something like that, Ishwar or something like that. I just simply search for ES or something like that. See what happened? That Ishwar user record populated here. Okay, I've just simply selected this and saved this. Okay, now if I save this, what happens, right? See that Ishwar name also popped up here. If I click on this, what will happen? It will take me to the parent record. Okay, so I just simply clicked on that. It took me to the Ishwar's record, right? So that's how you'll create relationships between multiple objects. Now, yeah. So now, right,
Yes,
so we have created a relationship between this position and the hiring manager, right? The user object. Now let's look at the job applications object. Okay. So if you take any job application, right? If you take any job application, right? So what all details you'll have generally? Who is the candidate? Okay, job application number you'll have, right? Number or ID, whatever it is, right? And after that, which guy has applied for that particular job, right? And for which position he has applied for that particular job, right? All of this data should we have it on our job application or not? We should capture all of this data, right? So what is the job application number? Which candidate is that and which position is that? So what is the relationship between the job application and the candidate? Just simply, think it, from a perspective, right? So should I have multiple job applications for a candidate, or will I have multiple candidates for a job application? How it will have? Just think from that particular perspective, then you'll get to know which one is child and which one is parent. Okay, so just look at it, right? Just look at it. Candidate can have many job applications. Okay, so if you go and apply for a job, right, you can apply for multiple companies, right? So each and every company will have your own job application, right? And if I'm giving some other outside example, right, so you can just simply go and apply for multiple companies, right? So that means you as a candidate can have multiple job applications, right? If they pick up your job application, right, do you think that job application can be part of multiple candidates? No, right? So one job application should always be part of one single candidate, right? So that means a job application, a candidate can have multiple job application. Not so now, I want to create a relationship between this job application and the candidate. Where should I create the relationship field? Where should I create the lookup relationship field? Where should I create the lookup relationship field?
on the child side.
Child
Job
means
application, sir.
which job application? Yes, this is what? Lookup relationship, right? Using this candidate lookup relationship, you are creating, relationship between candidates and the job application. A candidate can have multiple job applications, right? Multiple job applications. What should be the relationship between job applications and positions, right? Job application, right? So should have what kind of details I've told you? Job application number, which candidate has applied for it, and for which position he has applied for, right? So what should be the relationship between job application and the position object, right? Again, I have two objects, job application object and the position object. Which object is on the parent side and which object is on the child side? For a single position, there can be many job applications, right? So now this is a child, right? This is a parent. Okay, so a single position can have multiple job applications, right? Multiple job applications, right? So now we are clear with that. Okay, now where should I create the relationship field between job application and position? If I want to create a relationship, where should I create that relationship field? On the child. We have already created this. That is what this is. We want to track positions, means we need a field, right? That is what this field is, right? We have to create this on job application, right? What is that field? Position field, right? The same way candidate also we have created. The same way number also we are capturing. These are the three fields: number field, candidate field, position field, right? So maybe we should be we'll be having other fields as well, but this is something that I just spoke about. Okay, right. That's fine, right? So now tell me, right? So we are clear with it, right? On job application, what all fields we have we should be creating? we should be creating candidate to relate this candidate with a job application, right? And the same way, I should be creating a position field also, so that I can relate a job application to the positions also. Okay. So now let's do that. I want to create two relationship fields on job application. Okay. So let me go to this job application and let me go to the fields and relationships and what? Right here, new lookup relationship, and then what?
Next.
Which object? I'm creating relationship with
User.
candidate. Okay, which object I should select now?
Yes.
Candidate.
Candidates.
Okay. And then who is that particular candidate, right? So child relationship name, I'm just simply leaving it as job applications. Okay. If I go to a candidate, I should be able to see, this is an API name, right? So for the relationship, there is some backend name, right? That's what it is. But you can, so whatever I've shown you right earlier, that particular thing can be changed. Okay. So if I go to any of the right account or something like that, okay, whatever name that I am seeing here, right? So this name can be customized and modified, right? So there is a backend name that gets created for the relationship that we are creating. That is what this particular thing is. For this, you don't need to worry about it. You can just simply leave it as it is. Okay, every time, right? So whatever default thing that is, it is taking, you can just simply leave it like that. You don't need to much worry about it. You can just simply leave it like that. Okay, so that is fine. But this particular thing can be customized, right? Whatever name and all of that we are seeing here. So if you want to, if say for example, you have a relationship between contact and account, right? So we know contacts is a child, right? So here you can just simply have it as contacts, or if you want to have it as some other name with some other name, right? You can do that as well. Okay. So that is not the child relationship name, the one that I've told you earlier. Okay. But this can be named with whatever name that you want to name, right? This is something we'll see in the later stages, but this particular relationship name, the one that we have seen in the earlier, right? This is the API name. But so you need to not worry about it. Okay. So what API name? Not the field API name, right? Not the lookup field API name that we are creating. This is the relationship API name. Okay. So you don't need to bother much about it. So whatever value that comes here, just simply leave it like that. Okay. For now. Okay. So, but, so we have created the name and the field name and the label name, and let's make it available for all the people, right? And next, click next and click next, and then add it to the page layout and then save it. Okay. So now I want to create one more field on the what? Job application, which is position. Okay. So how can you do that? Which field I should select? Which field should I select? Lookup relationship. Okay. So, and then next.
Lookup. Next.
Lookup. Position. And then next. Position. Right. I'm just simply leaving it like this. And then click next. Make it visible for all profiles. And then next. And then next.
Save.
And then save. Okay. Right. See, I have two fields, position _C and candidate _C. Okay. Right. Good. So now if I go back to my job applications, right? So how many positions I have? Salesforce administrator and Salesforce developer I have. Okay. In my candidates, how many candidates I have? Right. I have candidate with C001. Okay. Candidate number. Okay. So, and let me add 2 more candidates. Right. I didn't created any fields, but probably you guys could have already created a lot of fields like candidate name and all of that. But, but here, so I didn't created that. So that reason I have only candidate numbers here. Okay. Now, if I have to create a job application, if I click on new, what will happen? It will ask me for the candidate, which candidate, right? And for which position he is applying for, right? So candidate 2 is applying for Salesforce administrator. Now let me click on save. Now, so I have this job application created the same way, right? So let's say, for example, for the same position, right? Salesforce administrator, candidate 1 is also applying, say, for example. Okay. So now how can you do that, right? You can just simply, right? You can create it like that, and you can just simply click on save. Now what happened? What happened? What happened? Right? So this candidate, this particular job application, right? This particular, position, Salesforce administrator, how many job applications we have? How many job applications we have? 2 job applications, right? Candidate 1 and candidate 2 also applied, right? So if I want to see that, where should I go? I should go to the related section, but this is where I should be able to see them, right? The same way for the candidate also, if I open the candidate and if I go to the related list, I should be able to see all the what? All the job applications that particular candidate is part of. Okay. Right. So for this particular thing, right, we can see that, right, this candidate 2 is having how many job application? 1 job application, right? The same way, if I go to candidate 1, if I go to related list, I can see, right, this candidate is having 1 job application. If I click on that particular job application, it will take me to that job application, right? But whereas in positions, it is not showing me that. Why? The first thing that we should check off is we should clear the cache memory. Okay. Now let me clear the site data and let me refresh this. See, now I can see that. Okay. So this particular Salesforce administrator position now have 2 applications, J001 and J002. Okay. So if I click on this, it will take me to that particular job application. Okay. Is there now, right? So let's create one more relationship field. Okay. So between the review object and the job application object. I've already told you what is the purpose of review object. Yeah, to track feedback, right? For a particular job application. If I take this job application, right? Say for example, if I, if I have to, if someone from the IT department, right, Salesforce department has interviewed this guy, right, on this, has made some kind of progress on this job application, and they have to share some feedback. Where do they share that? They share that through reviews. Okay. To share that through feedback, right? Say for example, so you'll not just have only one round of interview, right? So you'll have multiple rounds, right? So that means you can have multiple reviews on a given job application. What kind of relationship we should have between this job applications and the employment websites? How many type of relation, so not employment websites, sorry. So between these job applications and the reviews. So what kind of relationships we should be having? Job applications and the reviews. One is the parent and which one is the child here?
Job application.
Okay, job application is a parent. Why? Because for a single job application, you'll have multiple reviews. This is a child and this is a parent. Now tell me, which type of relationship should we create? Should we go for lookup or should we go for master detail? Detail, right? Why is it's mandatory? Why? Because without a job application, you can never take an interview, right? You can never take an interview. So for that reason, what? So we should create a master detail relationship on the child object. Now, so what should I do now? Search for reviews.
Reviews.
Okay. Now, where should I go?
Fields and relations.
And then next, please, tell me, right? Next, I'll not ask you.
New.
Okay.
Master detail relationship.
Okay. And then which object I should
Job
select?
application.
Job application. Okay, and then okay, so child relationship name, I'm just simply leaving like that. Okay. Next, make this visible for everything. Click next. Right. So if you clearly observe, right, so it is not allowing us to select anything, right? For master detail relationship, it is not allowing us to whether make that visible or not visible, right? By default, it became visible. Why? without master detail relationship, right? Without the filling that particular field, you cannot create this child record, right? Is that right or wrong? You cannot create this child record. We already know that. We cannot create a review without job application, right? So that means if if you are not making it visible for some people, do you think they'll be able to create those records? Do you think they'll be able to create reviews if that field is not visible for them? They won't be
No,
able
sir.
to create it, right? So that is mandatory. But if you are not making visible for them, they'll never be able to create those job reviews. So for that reason, by default, whenever you have a master detail relationship, by default, right, since that is mandatory, by default, that field will become as visible for everyone. Okay, so you cannot either deselect or select that particular field in step 4. Okay, so that is what it is. And then let's click on next. Oh, sorry. Next. And and on page layout also by default it will come, right? You cannot either select or deselect. Why? Because so on page layout also that should be available, then only people can fill that information. Okay, so now click on next and then save it. Okay, right? So now if I go back to reviews, right, if I have to create a review, okay, so it'll ask me, right, on which job application you want to create that review. I can select that, and review means, right, so maybe I should create 2 more fields here, right? Otherwise it will not make any sense. Let's create 2 more fields, right? Like what are those fields, guys? What are the fields that we have created on review object in your assessment and rating? These are the fields that we have created, right? What is the assessment? Overall rating of the candidate skills, and assessment is to store the information about the feedback. It is a text long area. Okay, now let me create those 2 fields as well. What are those 2 fields? Rating, no? Rating is a number. Just simply leaving the length like this, and let me click on okay. Next. So that should be length should be 1, but I've just simply left it like 18. Okay, for now, just simply not bother it, not bother much about it. Let me refresh this. Okay, now if I try to create a new review, okay, job application, for this particular job application, what is the rating? Rating is a 8, say for example. The rating scale is 1 to 10, then the rating is 8, say for example. This is the review I am capturing. Okay, now this is what it is, right? So now if I go to any of the job application, and if I open the job application 1, if I go to the related list, I can see the reviews here. Okay, so there is a review R00001. Okay, so that is associated with this job application. Right. So there is something called many-to-many relationship, guys. Okay. So where do we use this many-to-many relationships? Okay, given an object A and object B, okay, say for example, for object A, you should have multiple object B records, and for object B also, if you want to have multiple object A records, if you want to relate the A records with multiple B records, and if you want to relate B records with multiple A records, then you'll go with many-to-many relationship. Okay, so now let's see how to create that many-to-many relationship. And now let's see a clear example for that. Let's take the positions and the employment websites. Okay, if you take a position, right, right, so Salesforce administrator or whatever it could be. So on how many websites we can post this particular thing? So we have multiple websites like Naukri, right, and LinkedIn, okay, and Monster and all of that. Okay, so can we post this position to multiple websites? Is that true or false? Is that true or false? Yes. Right, we can post this position to multiple websites. Okay, the same way, say for example, we have Salesforce developer also, right? The same way Java is Java developer, or someone is there, right? So do you think Naukri should only have administrator, or Naukri can hold these 3 positions as well? Okay, Naukri can have, Naukri can have administrator, Naukri can have Java, and Naukri can have Salesforce developer also posted onto it, right? So that means if you clearly observe, right, so Naukri Naukri in the sense, right? Job employment websites can have multiple positions, and at the same time, positions also can be part of multiple websites, right? So that means what kind of relationship we have between these two objects? We have a many-to-many relationship, right? So a Naukri can host multiple jobs, right? Like administrators, developer, and Java the same way. So any job can be part of multiple websites, right? Multiple employment websites. So that means there is a many-to-many relationship, right? In this case, how can we create this particular relationship between these two objects? So, right, if you have to create a relationship, we already know, right? If you have a two objects A and B, and whatever object is the child, right? In that case, what can we do, right? So we'll create that relationship field on the child object. Okay. But here, if you see this, right, both of them are childs and both of them are parents. Then how can we achieve this? Right? We can achieve this with the help of junction object. Okay. We can achieve this with the help of what? Junction object. Okay. So let me to show you what that junction object is all about. Okay. So you have two objects, object A and object C. What you will do is you will introduce another object called object C in between. Okay. Now what you will do is, right, you will make this object C as a child for object A and as a child for object B as well. Okay. What you'll do? You will make this as a child for object A, and you will make this as a child for object what? B also. Okay. So then what will happen is that, right? So this is a child, right? So for A also this is a child, for B also this is a child. Since this is a child, right? So if you have to create a relationship between A and C, where you will create that field? Where you will create that relationship between A and C? This is the child, guys. Where you will create a relationship between with this A and C?
C.
C, right? So I'll create a relationship field, right? Named A field, okay? On the C object. The same way, right? The relationship between B and C is what? What is that? Child and parent, right? Where C is child and B is parent, right? Where do you create that relation? Where do you create that relationship field between B and C? Where do you create that?
C.
On C, right? So here also you can write it like B field. Okay. So now what will happen is, right, this particular thing will act as child for between both of those things, and this will create a many-to-many relationship between both of these objects. In our example itself, right, in our this example itself, right? So we have positions, we have positions, okay, and we have employment websites as well. Okay. So what I'll do is, right, I'll create a junction object, right? Something, right? We can give any name to it. Okay. What I'll name it as, job postings or something like that. Postings, right? So pardon me if there are any spelling mistakes. Okay. What I'll do is, right? So I will, this is, see, at the end of the day, this is a table, right? So what can we do is, right, we can just simply track, right? So what I've told you, right? So if you have A, B, and C, you will create the relationship fields, right? So since the C is on many side, right? So where do you create this? You create the child relationships. So we will create the relationship fields on C object only, right? That is what I've told you, right? A field and B field. Okay, this is what we do, right? So this is what I've told you, right? In this case, job postings is a junction object between postings and the employment websites, right? So we want many-to-many relationship between postings and positions and employment websites, right? So that means this job postings will be which object? Which object, guys? Junction object, right? So that means we should have this position field and employment field on the employment website field on the job postings, right? So what I'll do is I will just simply write the position and I will write the employment website as well. Employment website also. Okay, right? So now what happens? Right? So now, so here you'll have something called ID or something like that, right? So now what will happen? Just look at this. Tell me, right? So what position we have, right? Administrator we have, Salesforce admin you have, right? So can this be part of Naukri? Yes, right? Naukri, this can be part of Naukri. And then the same admin position can be part of which one? Monster, right?
LinkedIn.
right? So the same admin position can be part of LinkedIn as well. Okay. So now let's take one more record here. Okay. So now let's take one more record here. So now let's take the developer, right? You know, developer can be part of what? Naukri. Okay. The same way, the same dev can be part of what? LinkedIn also. Okay. Say for example, let's take it like this. So now if you observe, clearly observe IDs, you know, let's keep this as 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that, right? You know, for reference, I've given that. But if you clearly observe, right, you know, for this admin position, right? If you clearly observe admin and the dev, right? So Naukri, Monster. What is the other one? LinkedIn. Okay. If you clearly observe this, what happened, right? So admin is a part of 3 websites: Naukri, Monster, and LinkedIn. Okay. So that means, right? So this positions is on the one side, right? Admin is on the one side, whereas, you know, so this is part of how many? 3 websites, right? You know, so on job postings, we have 3 records for admin. Okay. Admin record we have, sorry, this 1 record we have, 2 record we have, and 3 record we have. The same way, if you look at Naukri, right? So how many, I mean, like, where all we have this Naukri here? 1 record is part of Naukri, right? The same way, this particular 4 record is also part of Naukri. Okay. Is that right or wrong? Is that clear, guys? Is that clear? So now what do we have, right? If you clearly observe, right? So admin can be part of multiple, I mean, like, admin can be part of multiple websites. The same way, right? A single website can host multiple positions as well, like admin and the dev also, right? You know, this way you create many to many relationship, wherein you will create a you will create a junction of, we call this as a junction, right? And it's a bridge. Okay. So with the help of this junction object, what we'll do is we'll create 2 child relationships, right? You know, on this particular object, right? You know, on whichever objects you want to create many to many relationship, right? For those particular objects, right? You know, I'm like using those, you know, objects, right? You know, you'll create a master detail. You will create a relationship between both of these objects and both of these objects. And, you know, so that way you will have many to many relationship between 2 objects. Is that so? Now, right, in many to many, what type of relationship we'll choose? Okay. Most of the times we'll choose master detail relationship. Which one will choose? Master detail relationship. Why master detail relationship? Right. If I create a lookup relationship, what will happen, right? Without admin also, I can create employment website. So that means what will happen? Right? There will be no value, right? You know, this website is not associated with any of the positions. So do you think that is correct?
No.
No, right? So, right. So if you are creating any record for any of the website, right? You know, that means there should be some position, you know, posted onto it. Then only you can capture that information. That means without having a position or without having an employment website, you can never create a record, right? You know, so in that case, for that reason, right? You know, in always, so in junction objects, what we do, we go with master detail relationships, right? You know, without having position, you cannot create, you know, an employment website, right? Or maybe without, you know, having an employment website, right? You know, you cannot create a job posting, right? So without employment website, you cannot create job posting. The same way, without a position also, you cannot create a job posting. Is that clear? Is that clear, guys? You cannot post a job, right? Without having a website, right? You know, so if you have to post a job somewhere, you know, the website should be there. Then only you can post a job onto the website. Otherwise, you cannot have a job posting. The same way, right? Without having a position, right? You cannot host a position, right? So that is what you cannot, you know, have a job posting, right? Just for that reason, right? You should always have a master detail relationship between these positions and the I mean, like, you know, so this positions and the job postings and the employment websites and the job postings as well. Tell me, guide me, please.
New.
New, and then
Master details.
master detail, and then
Next.
okay, next. Which object I should select?
The
Which object I should select?
Suppose push.
Position. Okay. And then
Next.
okay.
Position.
I'm just simply leaving like this. Okay.
Next.
Let me click on next. Okay. Since this is
Yeah.
master detail, this should be visible.
Visible.
And next. And there is a last step, right? You know, there is a last step I didn't show you last time, right? You know, so this is a related list label. Okay. What this is, you know, for now, just simply leave it like this, right? On Monday, on Tuesday, we can discuss this. For now, you can just simply leave it like this, right? But, or let me tell you what's wrong in it. Okay. So on position layout, right? I'm creating this field on where position, right? Position object, I'm creating this field. Okay. That means, so if I go to position, right? So if I open any of the position in related list, so with what name, this job posting should be visible. Okay. That is what this related list label is. Okay. This is the label related list, the related list, whatever label, with what label we should reference those, we should reference those records, child records. That is what this label is. Okay. So in master detail relationship, position is the on position object. We are creating a relationship between position and the which object? Job postings objects. That means on position object, we'll have job postings as a child record, right? So what should be the label for it? Job posting should be the label. Okay. I'm fine with it. Okay. On the position layout. So this should be the field, right? You know, let me click on save. Okay. Right. So, and then next, which master detail relationship we should create in order to create a junction object? What is the next
Again,
field that we
new
have to create? New
Employment website.
master detail,
Master detail.
and then
Next.
uh,
Employment website.
employment website, and then next, and then
Employment website.
employment website, and then child relationship name. I can just simply leave it like that.
Next.
Now I'll have a problem here. Okay. So, okay. So this is what it is. Okay.
Understood.
API
Yes.
name, right? So underscore
Yes,
we
sir.
have to add. Now,
Next.
next. And so on employment website also, layout also, I want this to be visible like job postings.
Job
Okay,
posting.
let me just simply save this. Okay, right. Now I have this particular thing created. Okay, so now let me go back. But here, if you look at it, I don't have job postings available here. So why I didn't included the tab here? Can someone tell me? We don't need to create that manually. Okay, so from directly going into that particular tab, so there is no necessity for us, okay, to create a job posting, right? To post a job onto an employment website, or you know, to host a job onto an employment website. So we don't you know, need that separate tab to be visible and all of that. So for that we have you know, so we can just simply we can create it from the related list also, right? The one of the beauties with this related list is, right, you know, you can see the child related you know, related records, and along with that, if you want to create child related records, you can create it from here as well. Okay, so we know, right, you know, so job applications is there. Job applications is a child of positions. Okay, you can create job applications from here also, right, from the job applications tab, you know, tab also, or you know, from its any of the parents also, you know, you can create that job applications. Okay, so the same goes with job postings as well. Okay, so I can create job posting from position object, or either I can create the job posting from any of my employment websites also. I can do that. Okay, so Naukri is there, say for example, I can create it from the employment websites also. I can do that. Okay, directly if I go to the related list from here also, I can create it. So when I can create it either from the position or either from the employment website, what is the purpose of having it? Okay, there is no need for it, right? So for that reason only I have removed this. Okay, so now let me go to the positions, right? If I open any of the positions, and if I go to related list, right, if I click on new job posting, right, what it is asking, right, you know, on which website, onto which website I want to have this employment, I want to, post this position, right? Onto Naukri, I want to post this, right? Let me save this, right? So this job was posted into Naukri website. Okay, the same way, let me go to Salesforce developer also. So this Salesforce developer also, I want to post it onto the Naukri, right? So what can I do? I can just simply in the website, I can select the Naukri website and I click it on save, right? If I go to employment website and if I open Naukri, I can see, if I go to related list, I can see both the job postings. Okay. So this JP001 is a Salesforce admin and JP002 is a Salesforce developer. Okay, now let's look at the differences between master detail and the lookup relationship. Okay, so many to many relationship is something like, so you can create many to many relationship using junction object. Okay, can be created using master detail relationship. Okay, so now let's see the differences between the many to many and so master detail and the lookup relationship. The major differences. Okay, so what are these differences? What are these differences? I'll cover them in another a couple of minutes. With this, we can conclude the session. Okay, lookup and master detail relationship. So lookup relationship is loosely coupled. That means without having a parent, we can create a child record. Whereas without having a parent, we cannot create a child record, right? So that means they are strongly coupled. Okay, there are some fields called roll-up summary fields, right? So those fields can be possible only on master detail relationship, but not on lookup relationship. So so this is something we'll discuss in our next class. For now, you can just simply leave this aside, or you can just simply remember this. Okay, lookup summary fields are not available in lookup. Lookup summary fields are available in master detail, or you can just simply don't bother about the second thing. You don't need to bother about it. Just simply leave it. Okay, so parent record is not required when creating a child record. So it's the same thing, loosely coupled and tightly coupled. Whenever you are creating a child record, parent record is not required all the time, right? But whereas in master detail, right, parent record is always mandatory in order to create a child record. Okay, is that clear? Okay, so lookup fields are not required on the page layout or of the detail record, but if you make them required field, it is advised, right? Or whatever it could be, right? So generally, page layout, on page layouts, lookup relationships are not mandatory. Why they are not mandatory? Either you can have a parent or you don't need to. I mean, like, it's up to you. If you want to have a parent, you can have it, or you can just simply leave it like that. Okay, so for that reason, right, those fields are not mandatory on the page layout level, but whereas master detail relationships are always required. That is the reason why. In fourth or fifth step, what happened, right? We don't have an option to either select place that field on the page layout or not to place that field on the page layout. By default, that got checked. Did you guys notice that? Did you guys notice
Yes.
that? Right? So that means master detail fields are always required on the page layout, right? So you cannot omit that. Okay, so and then so there is one more thing you should keep in mind. Standard object can never can be on the side of standard objects can be on the side of child records when they are in a relationship with the custom objects, right? So now we have position object. Okay, and the same way now we have hiring manager object as well. Okay, so hiring manager in the sense user object as well, right? So what is a position object? What is a position object? What is a position object? What is a position object, right, guys? Okay, so let me just simply let me open my paint once. Let me open my paint. Okay, so here okay, there is one thing that you should be blindly remember this. Okay, so we have standard and custom objects, right? Standard and custom objects. Okay, so you can create relationships between any objects, right? Object A and object B and all of that. Okay, so but right, so if you are keeping any you can have any object on the child side and you can have any object on the parent side. In general, we know that. Okay, so but there is something that you need to remember. Okay, standard objects can never be on the standard objects, right? Standard objects can never be on the child side okay, of a master detail relationship. Okay. What is it? This is one of the blind sign that you have to remember. Child object can never be on the child side of a standard object, can never be on the child side of a master detail relationship. Okay, this is something you have to keep in mind. Guys, is it clear? Standard objects can never be on the child side of a master detail relationship. I'll ask you now I'll ask you a few questions. Okay, I have an account object and I have a contact object. What is the relationship between account and contact? Is it lookup or master detail? Is it lookup or master detail?
Look up.
Why?
Just we can create a contact without using an account.
Without using an account. Okay, that is the baseline. Okay, but apart from that, so there is something I've just told you. Standard objects can never be on a child side of a master detail relationship. We know account is a child, right? Whereas so contact is a child, and whereas account is a parent. But the relationship is a lookup relationship. Why? Because we can never have standard object on the child side of a master detail relationship. If I want to convert this into a master detail relationship, then what will happen? Contact will become a child of account, right? In the master detail relationship. So now contact is a which type of object? Standard object, right? Standard objects can never be on which side? Child of a master detail relationship. Now tell me, what is the relationship between now we haven't discussed many custom objects, right? So okay, right. So yeah, just simply keep that in mind. Okay, so there are few things called opportunities and all of that as well, but we haven't discussed opportunities and all those things also. Opportunities are nothing but the potential revenue deals, guys. Okay, so let me give you a sales cycle. Okay, so at a higher level, so what do we have generally? If someone is interested in any of our company's products, first we'll create a lead. Okay, lead is a standard object where we'll capture all the details of an individual. Okay, individual who is interested in our product and he's from which company and what products he is interested in, and all of that we'll capture in a lead. And after that, what will happen is that if he says like, he will definitely buy your product, then we'll convert them into customers. Okay, we'll convert them into what? Accounts. Okay, so then what will happen? A lead will become from the lead object, right? Whatever company information that you have. So using that company information, we'll create one contact. Whatever personal details we'll have, right? Who is that person and all of that. Using that, we'll create a contact. Okay. So, and along with this, what we'll do is now we have account and contact, right? So, and after that, right, what kind of business, right? What kind of products he is purchasing from us and how much business he is going to generate for us and all of those things. Like, you can just in simple terms, right? You can capture all the payments and, all the purchases of a particular customer, right? Using opportunities in Salesforce. Okay. Using what? Opportunities. Which object? Opportunities object. Okay. Using opportunities object, you can track all the payments and all the, purchases of a particular customer, right? It will start with lead will get converted into an account and contact, right? Company information will go into account and the personal details will go into contact. And after that, we'll create an opportunity. Using this opportunity, we can track all the all the payment related information. If you take a simple example, right? So you guys were leads in the beginning. Okay, for our Exalting Academy, you guys were leads in the beginning. And after that, what happened? Right? So you have expressed your interest, and for that reason, what we have done is we have created a contact for you. Okay, we haven't created an account, but we have created a contact for you. Since you are not from a company, we have created a contact for you. Okay, that means you are a customer for us. Okay, so and after that, what we have done, right? You have paid some seat reservation fee, right? So that means for that we have created one opportunity one. Okay, and after that you have paid the full amount, right? For that, what we have done, we have created one more opportunity called opportunity 2. This is the reservation fee, and this is what? The final full fee, right? So this is what we have so far done, right? For opportunity 1 we have created, and opportunity 2 also we have created here. Okay, so now if you ask me, what is the relationship between account and opportunities? What is the relationship between account and opportunities in terms of one to many? Which one should be on the one side and which one should be on the many side between an opportunities and accounts?
Opportunities is on many side.
Opportunities on the
Many side.
and account is on the
One side.
one side, right?
And
Right. And the same way here, contacts is on the contacts is on the one side and opportunities on the many side,
Many side, okay.
right? Many side. Okay, that is what it is. Now tell me, account and contact, what is the relationship? What is the relationship? Look up. Okay, why you can never have master detail relationship on a, you can never have a child, right? We can never have a standard object as a child in a master detail relationship, right? Now account and opportunities, tell me what kind of relationship we should be having between account and opportunity.
Same, sir. Child of a standard object.
Cannot be on the, cannot be in a master detail relationship, right? Yeah, that's absolutely true. But generally, if you look at, if you clearly observe this, right, so this is a lookup field, but in the background, right, there is what would I say? It will act as a master detail relationship only in the back end, right? So there is an exception for this, relationship between opportunity and account, right? So in general, it will act as a master detail only in the back end, but if you look at the type of relationship between both the account and opportunity, it's a lookup field only. Okay, so why it will act as, there is a exceptional case for this. Why this will act as an master detail is because, right, without having an account, it is not advisable to create an opportunity. There should be a customer, right? Without customer's information, you cannot create opportunities, no? So for that reason, so it will act as a master detail. But we have something, right? There is one more exception, right? Child object, so any standard object can never be on the child side of a master detail relationship. For that reason, so the relationship between both of these objects is always a lookup, but this will act as a master detail in the backend. Okay, that is what it is. Okay, there is a special case for it. That's what it is. Let me look into this, right? So if you clearly observe this, standard object, right? Standard object record can be on the detail side of a custom object in a lookup relationship. Okay, detail means child side. Okay, standard object can be on the child side of a custom object in a lookup relationship, whereas standard object records cannot be the child records. Okay, so that is what it is. Can have a child record without a parent, you cannot have a child record without a parent. Okay, so that is one thing you should be bothering, you should be knowing about. Okay, by default the record ownership of the child records is not, you don't need to worry about worry much about this. This is something that we'll discuss in the security part. But if you want to remember this, you can just simply remember it for now. Okay, record ownership, for every record there will be an owner, I have told you, right? Okay, so in master detail relationship, what will happen is, right, whoever is the owner of the parent, right, whoever is the owner of the parent object, the same person will become the owner of the child as well. Okay, so in master detail relationship, what will happen? Whoever is the owner of the parent, the same person will become the owner of the child record as well. Whereas in lookup relationship, it is not like that. You can have a different parent, different owner for the parent record and different owner for the child record as well. So that is something you have to keep in mind. Okay, that is what it is. By default, the record ownership of the child records is not controlled by the parent. That means you can have any owner for the child records, right? Child record can have a different owner, parent record can have a different owner. But whereas for the in master detail relationship, the parent controls the record ownership of the child records. That means the owner field is not available on the child record, right? Whenever there is a master detail relationship. Why? Because, right, whoever is the parent for the whoever is the owner for the parent record, the same person will be the parent for the owner for the child record as well. For that reason, you will generally not find the owner field on the UI of a child record most of the times. Okay, Even if you find that, you'll always have the parent's honor as a honor of the child as well, right? So you can create a maximum of up to 40 lookup relationship fields on an object. If you take any object, right, you can create up to a maximum of how many lookup relationship fields? You can create up to a 40 lookup relationship fields on a given object. That means for any given object, you can have up to 40 parent objects. Okay. So you can make an object, you know, as a child of 40 different parent objects. Whereas, right, you can only create a maximum of 2 master detail relationships, right? You can create only 2 master detail relationships in a what? In any given object, right? You can create 40 lookup, but you can only create 2 master detail relationships, right? That means only, you know, on a junction object, you can have 2 master detail relationships, right? You know, so, but apart from that, you can never create any extra master detail relationship on any given object, right? You know, this is something you have to keep in mind. Okay. Right. So no cascade delete and no cascade delete. Cascade delete means if you delete the parent, what will happen? All the child records will automatically get deleted, right? Whereas, you know, in lookup relationship, right, you know, even if you delete the parent, child records won't get deleted automatically. Okay.